Most managers try to outthink Pep Guardiola and Mikel Arteta. Michael Carrick did the opposite. He stopped thinking and started playing. In the space of 1 week, he played against Man City and Arsenal, the two hardest opponents in world football, and walked away with 6 points. How? By stripping the world's most expensive squad down to a simple, compact 4-2-3-1 that broke Arsenal's hearts. But here's what the pundits aren't telling you. This wasn't just tactical brilliance. This was a complete psychological reset, a rejection of everything modern football has become obsessed with. While Arteta and Guardiola spent hours choreographing intricate passing sequences and positional rotations, Carrick did something radical. He gave his players one simple job each and told them to do it brilliantly. And the result? Chaos for the opposition. By the end of this video, you'll understand the genius of tactical simplicity. You'll see how a rigid structure can dismantle fluid systems. And you'll learn why sometimes less really is more. But first, subscribe to Cyberboot right now. It takes only 2 seconds. Because we're about to break down the tactical masterclass that has the entire Premier League asking, have we been overcomplicating football this whole time? Let's expose how Carrick's back-to-basics revolution unlocked the 3-2 victory that has everyone talking. Think about modern football for a second. Tactical periodization, positional play, numerical superiority in zones, inverted fullbacks, false nines, underlapping runs. Football has become a language that requires a university degree to understand. Managers pride themselves on complexity. They want to be seen as chess masters, constantly 3 moves ahead, orchestrating elaborate patterns that opponents can't decipher. And for the most part, it works. Pep Guardiola has built a dynasty at Manchester City with his intricate positional rotations. Mikel Arteta has turned Arsenal into title contenders by implementing Guardiola's methods. Complexity has become synonymous with intelligence. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Complexity only works when your players understand it perfectly. When they don't, when they hesitate for even a split second because they're unsure of their positioning, the entire system collapses. And that's exactly what was happening at Manchester United under previous management. Players were overwhelmed. They were thinking too much, looking over their shoulders constantly, checking positions, second-guessing decisions. The talent was there, the investment was there, but the clarity wasn't. And then Michael Carrick walked in. No grand presentations, no elaborate tactical dossiers, no promises of revolutionary new systems. He looked at the squad and asked one simple question. What if we just made things clear? What if, instead of asking players to rotate through 17 different zones, we gave them one position and one role? What if, instead of trying to dominate possession, we dominated the space that actually matters? What if, instead of outthinking the opposition, we just outworked them? And then he implemented it. A compact 4-2-3-1. Rigid, disciplined, simple. And the Premier League's most complex teams had no answer for it. Manchester City at the Old Trafford, beaten. Arsenal at the Emirates, a fortress where they'd gone 12 games unbeaten, beaten 3-2 in a comeback victory that sent shockwaves through English football. 6 points from 6 from the 2 hardest fixtures in the calendar. Not through tactical innovation, but through tactical reduction. And today, we're going to break down exactly how he did it. Let's start with the fundamental shift in philosophy. Under previous managers, Manchester United tried to play like Manchester City. They wanted to dominate possession, control the tempo, pin opponents back. It looked good on paper, but there was one massive problem. They didn't have the players for it. Manchester City can play intricate possession football because they've spent a decade building a squad specifically for that purpose. Every player is technically perfect. Every player understands the positional rotations instinctively. United's squad, not built for that. So what happened? They'd have the ball, but do nothing with it. They'd complete passes, but create no danger. They'd control games statistically, but lose them in reality. Carrick recognized this immediately. He looked at the squad and realized, we don't need to dominate the ball. We need to dominate the space in front of our penalty area. This is what the video calls compression over possession. Instead of spreading the team wide to create passing angles, Carrick pulled everyone narrow. He created a compact block that occupied the central zones. The formation on paper was a 4-2-3-1, but without the ball, it became a 4-4-1-1 mid-block. And the purpose was brutally simple: make the center of the pitch unavailable. Against Arsenal at the Emirates, United likely held less than 40% possession, maybe even 35%. But they didn't care, because possession doesn't win football matches. Creating high-quality chances wins football matches. And by denying Arsenal access to the central areas, Carrick forced them into a very specific pattern of play. Arsenal would pass the ball around the outside, from fullback to center back to fullback to winger, round and round, a U-shape of sterile possession. They'd complete 20, 30 passes. But none of them were dangerous. None of them were vertical. None of them were penetrating the United defense. And all the while, United's defensive shape stayed intact. No panic, no chasing, No stretching out to press high, just patience, discipline, structure. And then, the moment Arsenal tried to force a pass through the middle, the moment they attempted to thread the ball between the lines, United would strike. Interception, counterattack, chaos. This is the genius of simplicity. Carrick didn't try to beat Arsenal at their own game. He changed the rules of the game entirely. He turned their greatest strength, high possession, positional control, into a weakness by making them play where they were least dangerous. Now let me ask you something. Do you think modern football has become too obsessed with possession statistics? Or is possession still the most important metric? Drop your answer in the comments. Because this debate is central to understanding Carrick's revolution. But tactical philosophy means nothing without the right personnel to execute it. And this is where Carrick made his most important decision, the midfield partnership, Casemiro and Mainoo. Now, these two had played together before, but never with this much clarity about their specific roles. Let's break down what each player was asked to do. Casemiro, the anchor, his job was brutally simple: stay home. He positioned himself directly in front of the centre-backs, occupying the space that Arsenal's attacking midfielder, in this case, Martin Odegaard, loves to exploit. This is the number 10 zone, the area between the opposition's midfield and defense, the pocket where creative players can turn, receive, and create. Carrick's instruction to Casemiro was, don't let anyone play there. No rotating, no roaming, no pushing forward. Just lock the door. And Casemiro, with all his experience from Real Madrid, understood this role perfectly. He didn't try to win every tackle. He didn't try to make spectacular interceptions. He just occupied space. He blocked passing lanes. He made himself an obstacle that Arsenal had to navigate around. And because Arsenal couldn't play through him, they had to play around him, which meant wider passes, longer passes, less dangerous passes. Mainoo, the rover. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because Casemiro was locked in position, Mainoo had complete freedom. He could drift wide to overload the flanks when United had possession. He could carry the ball forward during transitions. He could press high when opportunities arose. He didn't have to worry about leaving space behind him because Casemiro was always there. This is what the video calls the license to roam. And the psychological impact of this cannot be overstated. Under previous management, Mainoo often looked hesitant. He'd start to push forward, then stop. He'd receive the ball in an attacking position, then immediately pass it backward. Why? Because he was constantly checking over his shoulder, constantly worried about being caught out of position. But under Carrick, that hesitation disappeared. He knew exactly where Casemiro was. He knew the space behind him was protected, so he could commit fully to his forward actions. And the result? Mainoo looked like a completely different player. Confident, decisive, aggressive. This is the double pivot benefit the analysis mentions. It's not just about having two central midfielders. It's about having two central midfielders with clearly defined complementary roles. One stays, one goes. Simple, effective, devastating. And when you combine this with the compact defensive shape, you create something incredibly difficult to break down. Because even when Arsenal did manage to get the ball into dangerous areas, there were always bodies in the way. Always someone blocking the passing lane. Always someone forcing the player on the ball to make a difficult decision. This wasn't luck, this was design. Now we get to the truly brilliant part of Carrick's tactical setup. Because it wasn't enough to just defend well. United needed to create chances. And against a team like Arsenal, who dominate possession, those chances would come from turnovers. So Carrick set a trap. A very specific, very deliberate trap. Let me walk you through it step by step. Step 1. Clog the middle. United's compact 4-4-1-1 shape made the central areas extremely congested. Arsenal could see their attackers making runs, they could see pockets of space opening up, but actually getting the ball there, almost impossible. Step 2. Bait the risky pass. By making the safe passes sterile and repetitive, United dared Arsenal to try something more ambitious. They wanted Arsenal to attempt the vertical pass through the middle, because that's where the trap was set. Step 3. The interception trigger. As soon as Arsenal tried to thread a pass between the lines, United's midfield was ready. Casemiro or Mainoo would step across, intercept, and immediately the entire team would explode forward. Step 4. Exploit the high line. Here's the killer detail. Because Arsenal play with such a high defensive line and commit so many players forward, when they lose the ball, there's massive space behind their defense. And United had players positioned specifically to exploit this. Bruno Fernandes would receive the first pass after the turnover. He'd already be scanning for the runners. Patrick Dorgu would be making a blindside run from the left, stretching the defensive line. And suddenly, Arsenal's strength, their aggressive high press, became their vulnerability. This is what the analysis calls the if this then that trap. If Arsenal pass it wide, we stay compact. If Arsenal pass it backward, we stay patient. If Arsenal try to pass through the middle, we intercept and counter. It's a decision tree that forces the opposition into making exactly the mistake you want them to make. And at the Emirates, it worked perfectly. United didn't just defend and hope, they defended with purpose. They created specific conditions that would lead to specific opportunities. And when those opportunities came, they executed. The 3-2 victory wasn't fortunate, it was systematic. But here's the twist that nobody's talking about. This tactical system, this genius of simplicity, isn't actually new. It's how football used to be played before the Guardiola revolution. 20 years ago, this compact 4-4-1-1 mid-block was standard. It's how Jose Mourinho's Chelsea won titles. It's how Rafael Benitez's Liverpool competed in Europe. It's how Alex Ferguson's Manchester United won championships. Somewhere along the way, football convinced itself that this was outdated, that modern football required complexity, that if you weren't playing intricate possession football, you were behind the times. But Carrick just proved something crucial. Fundamentals never go out of style. You don't need 17 positional rotations if your shape is solid. You don't need 65% possession if you're creating better chances from 35%. You don't need to reinvent football. You just need to execute the basics brilliantly. And that's the real genius here. Carrick didn't revolutionize Manchester United. He restored them. He took them back to principles that actually work, principles that don't require a doctorate in tactical theory to understand. Defend well, counter quickly, execute ruthlessly. Simple. Now, let me ask you, do you think football tactics have become unnecessarily complicated? Or is complexity necessary at the highest level? Comment below. I genuinely want to hear your perspective on this. Let's talk about the specific players who made this system work, because tactics are useless without the right profiles executing them. Patrick Dorgu, the wide playmaker. Dorgu's role in this system is fascinating. On paper, he's playing as a left-sided attacker. But in reality, he's functioning almost like a second striker. Because the middle is so secure, thanks to Casemiro anchoring, Dorgu can push extremely high without worrying about defensive responsibilities. His job is simple. Stay high, stay wide, stay on the blind side of the right back. And the moment United win the ball, he attacks the space behind Arsenal's defensive line. This stretches the back line. It creates 1v1 situations. It forces Arsenal's defenders to make difficult decisions. Do they step out to press Dorgu? Then space opens centrally. Do they stay compact? Then Dorgu has time and space on the ball. Either way, United win. Matheus Cunha, the game changer. Now this is a fascinating tactical choice. Cunha didn't start the match. He was brought on in the final 20 minutes. Why? Because Carrick was saving him for when Arsenal's legs were heavy. After 70 minutes of chasing the ball, pressing high, and trying to break down United's compact block, Arsenal's players were physically and mentally fatigued. And that's when Carrick introduced fresh legs with devastating directness. Cunha's late winner wasn't luck, it was calculated. Carrick identified that Arsenal's focus would slip late in the game, and he had the perfect weapon ready. Bruno Fernandes. The pivot point. Under previous management, Bruno was asked to press high, chase back, and essentially play everywhere. It exhausted him and diluted his effectiveness. Under Carrick, his role was crystal clear. Stay central. Receive the first pass after turnovers. Launch the attack. That's it. No defensive chasing, no tracking fullbacks, no dropping into the defensive third to help build play. Just stay in the number 10 zone and do what you do best, create. This freed Bruno mentally and physically. He had energy to make decisive passes. He had clarity about when to play safe and when to take risks. And the results speak for themselves. Here's the part that statistics can't measure but might be the most important aspect of Carrick's revolution: the psychological shift. Under previous management, United's players were drowning in information, complex rotations, conditional movements, if-then scenarios for every phase of play. And the result was paralysis. Players hesitated. They second-guessed. They looked confused. But under Carrick, something changed. Defensive confidence. The back four, including Luke Shaw playing centrally, felt protected by the midfield screen. They knew Casemiro was always there. They knew the shape would stay compact. So they stopped panicking. When Arsenal attacked, United's defenders didn't dive into tackles desperately. They didn't scramble. They just held their positions and trusted the system. Offensive clarity. Attackers stopped overthinking. They played on instinct. Dorgu didn't need to check where he should be. He just stayed high and wide. Bruno didn't need to calculate 17 passing options. He just played the obvious ball forward. This is what the analysis calls the certainty of action. When players know exactly what their job is, they do it better. The mentality shift. And here's the most important part. The 3-2 comeback win at the Emirates wasn't just tactical. It was a statement. Arsenal are a fortress at home. They'd gone 12 games unbeaten. They're managed by one of the most tactically sophisticated coaches in world football. And United, with a caretaker manager implementing a simple system, went there and won. Coming from behind, showing resilience, executing under pressure. This is the return of what people call the Old Trafford fear factor. The mentality that United can beat anyone, anywhere, if they believe in the system and execute the basics. That's not coaching, that's culture. And Carrick restored it in 1 week. So here's the final verdict. Michael Carrick's genius wasn't invention, it was restoration. He didn't create a revolutionary new system, he implemented a tried and tested structure that works. A compact 4-2-3-1 mid-block. Casemiro anchoring, Mainoo roving, Bruno creating, Dorgu stretching, Kuna finishing, simple roles, clear responsibilities, ruthless execution. And the result, 6 points from 6 against Manchester City and Arsenal, the two hardest fixtures in English football. Not by trying to play better football than them, but by playing smarter football. By trading possession for position, complexity for clarity, panic for precision. The 3-2 victory at the Emirates proved the concept. United don't need to be the most sophisticated team, they just need to be the most effective. And effectiveness comes from simplicity. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Carrick's simple approach can work long term? Or will elite managers eventually figure it out and neutralize it? More importantly, has modern football become too obsessed with tactical complexity? Or is complexity necessary to compete at the highest level? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Let's debate this properly. And here's the big question. Should Carrick get the Manchester United job permanently? Or is he just a short-term stabilizer? Comment below, defend your position. Let's see where everyone stands. If this tactical breakdown changed how you see modern football, subscribe to Cyberboot immediately and turn on notifications. We don't just analyze games here, we analyze the philosophies, the systems, the decisions that actually win matches. Hit that like button if you finally understand why simplicity can beat complexity. Share this with anyone who thinks football tactics are too complicated to understand. And remember, the best tactics aren't the most complex, they're the most clear. This is Cyberboot, and we'll see you in the next breakdown.